listening to program notes for the Florida Orchestra's Huff Family Foundation Masterworks series. In this episode, I will be talking about Richard Strauss's An Alpine Symphony, Ralph Vaughan Williams's The Lark Ascending, and Ottorino Respighi's Pines of Rome, so you can dive deeper into the music anytime, anywhere. These audio program notes are authored by Kurt Loft, a local writer who has written about the arts in the Tampa Bay area for more than 40 years. You can find his full transcriptions at floridaorchestra.org. All right, let's dive in. Richard Strauss, 1864 to 1949. An Alpine Symphony, Opus 64. Performance duration, approximately 51 minutes. What to listen for in this piece? To create the musical tempest of a thunderstorm, the orchestra employs two seldom used but effective devices, a thundersheet and wind machine. Richard Strauss lived most of his life in the Bavarian town of Garmisch-Partenkirchen in the shadow of the Alps, so it comes as no surprise that mountains played a role in his music. Just as the subject of trees influenced the Respighi work on this program, An Alpine Symphony is a majestic take on the grandeur of nature, both tranquil and imposing. The symphony is technically a tone poem, an orchestral work that conveys a narrative beyond a strict musical structure. Each of its 22 short sections depicts a scene along a rugged trail, beginning and ending with night. Listeners need only close their eyes and imagine hiking up and down a mountain with all the breathtaking scenery, dangerous cliffs, and frightful weather. It isn't a simple stroll. The musical assignments are remarkably complex, and the orchestra must tackle not only the work's sheer length and varying textures, but an evolving fabric of polyphony over 45 minutes. The original score, his largest, includes more than 125 players, quadruple woodwinds, thundersheet and wind machine, 2 sets of timpani and harps, organ, and as many as 20 horns, some offstage. It's a huge piece with a huge orchestra, said TFO music director Michael Francis, and it makes for an extraordinary experience in the concert hall. If anything, An Alpine Symphony is a study in dynamics, from the pianissimo of sunrise to the cowbells of In Flowery Meadows, from the triumph of reaching the summit to the raucous fury of the thunderstorm. But for all its explosive energy, the symphony begins and ends in calm as the hikers leave before dawn and return after dusk. Careful listening also reveals how Strauss wrote ascending phrases for the way up the mountain and descending phrases for the way back down. Here are the individual sections to follow in your mountain trek, although they will be projected above the stage during the performance. Night, sunrise, ascent, entry into the forest, wandering by the brook, by the waterfall, apparition, in flowery meadows, on the pastures, through the thicket and briar, on the glacier, dangerous moment, on the summit, vision, mists arrive, the sun gradually darkens, elegy, calm before the storm, tempest and storm, descent, sunset, echo and night. Ralph Vaughan Williams, 1872 to 1958, The Lark Ascending. Performance duration, approximately 13 minutes. What to listen for in this piece? Tranquil and transparent, the violin dances arabesques over the orchestra, mimicking the flight of a lark. The music of England was quiescent throughout much the 19th century, when France, Germany, Russia, Spain, and other countries continued to forge their identities. But England soon would wake from its slumber with a distinctive style based on deep-rooted traditions dating back to the late Middle Ages. England's long-dormant musical personality came alive in the works of Elgar, Holst, Delius, Walton, and Britten. Joining them was Vaughan Williams, a large, sluggish man who finished 9 symphonies before his death at age 85, and who created an indigenous sound that rose from the shires themselves. Vaughan Williams loved the tradition of the English folk song and music that reflected the landscape of his country. He had little use for music of the Germanic European tradition. As long as composers persist in serving up at second hand the externals of the music of other nations, they must not be surprised if audiences prefer the real Brahms, Wagner, Debussy, and Stravinsky to their pale reflections. After earning a doctorate degree in music at Cambridge in 1901, he joined the English Folksong Society and immersed himself in simple tunes and oral lore he found in small villages and towns throughout England. The results were such classics as Fantasia on a Theme by Tallis on Wenlock Edge and the popular Fantasia on Greensleeves. In this tradition is the lovely The Lark Ascending, his homage to birdsong and to those who delight in listening to it. Based on a poem by George Meredith, this ethereal 13-minute romance for violin and orchestra is one of the most exquisite creations in the repertoire, with impressionistic violin themes that seem to linger and evaporate. Lark is all about pastoral beauty and lightness, and of the simple charm of birdsong on a summer's day in the country. The composer included the following excerpt from Meredith's poem on the published score. He rises and begins to round. He drops the silver chain of sound, of many links without a break, in chirrup, whistle, slur, and shake. For singing till his heaven fills, 'tis love of earth that he instills, and ever winging up and up, our valley is his golden cup, and he the wine which overflows to lift us with him as he goes, till lost on his aerial rings in light, and then the fancy sings, Ottorino Respighi, 1879 to 1936, Pines of Rome, performance duration, approximately 26 minutes. What to listen for in this piece? The final movement depicts the ghosts of ancient Roman soldiers returning from battle along the Appian Way, their footsteps growing louder as they near, culminating in one of the great orchestral climaxes in music. Trees have adorned the canvases of countless painters over the centuries, from Leonardo da Vinci to Asher Durand, artists who found inspiration in the majesty of an ancient oak or the grace of a willow. But the wonder of trees and forests also has been crystallized by artists who paint with sound, and one of the more evocative is Respighi's Pines of Rome. Part of a triptych that includes the fountains of Rome and Roman festivals, this multicolored portrayal depicts 4 Italian landscapes, along with the bustle of people, animals, and nature in repose. Respighi is not regarded as one of the more important 20th century composers, and he broke a long-standing Italian tradition by not writing a successful opera. None of his 9 attempts survived the indifference of the public or critics. Instead, he aligned with a group of musicians who sought to revive their country's music through Renaissance and Baroque forms, an example being his atmospheric ancient airs and dances. As a composer, Respighi emphasized clarity in his orchestration, the interplay of light and shade, and melodic invention. His music in general is immensely likable, lavish, tuneful, and buttressed by arching harmonies. Yes, he would have made a good painter, as his eye for detail and penchant for sweeping gesture are indelible, even if he wears on his sleeve the all-too-obvious influence of Rimsky-Korsakov and Richard Strauss. His masterpiece is, arguably, the 4-movement tone poem, Pines of Rome, the composer's most frequently performed work. The music opens with Pines of the Villa Borghese, a depiction of an elegant estate surrounded by trees and where adults relax and children play in the background. The mood suddenly shifts at Pines near a catacomb, and the orchestra takes on a meditative quality as a hymn rises from the depths. Again, the music changes course, this time to the Pines of the Janiculum bathed in moonlight. Audiences unfamiliar with this music may be surprised to hear, following a soft clarinet solo, the recorded sound of a nightingale. Then comes the composer at his most convincing. In Pines of the Appian Way, Respighi introduces an ancient Roman army marching home from battle, the sound of footsteps and trumpets drawing near. Pushed forward by an insistent ostinato, the musical legion reaches its destination, and the orchestra pulls out all the stops in a triumphal close, one of the more bone-shaking codas in all of music. It ends up with perhaps the loudest, most wonderful music you'll ever hear, Francis said. There are few programs we go full strength. This is one of them. Thank you for listening to Sound Waves with the Florida Orchestra. Enjoy the concert.